Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Reds Rundown podcast, hosted by two lifelong Reds fans and journalists. I'm Rob. He's Joe, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Joe, I already have a decent idea of how this answer is going to go, but how are you feeling today? How's it going?
Pretty good. Vacation was good. Would have liked the Reds to win some games while I was on vacation. I was streaming all the games to the TV so the family could watch, and it was disappointing. It was disappointing. But let's see where we go from here, Rob. Let's see what we do.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty interesting discussion, I think, for this week for both Joe and I. We have, I think, similar thoughts, but also we're intrigued, to say the least, about what is going to happen next. Question of the day. Make sure you answer in the comments below or let us know on Twitter. What should the Reds do now, Joe? What should the Reds do now? And I think we're going to dive into that here shortly, a little bit later in this segment. But the Reds coming into their game today are 5 games under at 36 and 41. They are certainly not out of it, Joe, and we'll talk about that. Like I said during our more less recap and preview section, our middle section there. But let us know what you guys think. What should the Reds do? And I know it's a pretty open-ended question, so we want open-ended answers, to be honest with you. But we will take a look here, Joe. It was a disappointing series in Pittsburgh. The Reds lost 2 of 3, including in the first game against Paul Skeens. They actually had Paul Skeens out, and in an uncomfortable position. First run in his career given up in the first inning. The Reds had an opportunity to do some more damage, and he limited it. Carson Spires got his first start of his career, and generally, once he got settled in, looked pretty good. The Reds lost 4-1. It was really the offense, Joe, that just could not get going, other than Elly De La Cruz, who had a 3-for-4 game, and Spencer Steer, who had the RBI double to center. The next game, the Reds were able to come out on top 2-1. You don't think of these teams as being so pitcher friendly that these games would be as close as they were in terms of there being such little offense. But the Reds win 2-1. Nick Lodolo has an awesome game. Santiago Espinal hits an absolute shot to left field to give the Reds a 2-1 victory. Lodolo went 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, and 8 strikeouts. An excellent game from him. And then it was a battle of the, well, presumed, at least until recently for the Pirates, aces of each squad. Hunter Green and Mitch Keller battled valiantly against each other. Hunter Green with 6 1/3, 2 hits, 9 strikeouts, probably one of the best starts of his entire career. But unfortunately, Nick Martinez gave up an 8th-inning home run to Brian Reynolds to give the Pirates a 1-0 victory. Then we headed into the weekend. Red Sox versus Reds. Tale as old as time. Not really, but a classic in the 75 World Series. Reds won the first game 5-2. The Candyman Can hitting a home run, 2 home runs, in this game. India also hitting a home run. And Andrew Abbott striking out 10 in one of his best performances of the year, in my opinion, as well. He did give up the 2 earned runs, but I've come to kind of expect that he's going to always probably give up 2, and it's whether or not he's going to give up more than that. But he had an excellent game, to say the least. Reds blew a big game where Jarren Duran robs a 9th-inning home run to tie the game. The Reds lose 4-3. Reds got out ahead early, 3-1. And it felt like they had this game in control. Frankie Montas was absolutely cruising. And then Justin Wilson gets some untimely errors. Doesn't look good as well. And defense is really killing this team. And then the Sunday game, the Reds did try to come back. Lodolo had his worst start of the year. He was rolling as well and then ran into issues in the 4th inning and could not escape them, unfortunately. Brought his ERA still under a 3, but all the way up to a 2.96. And the Reds dropped the Sunday game. Joe, look, this week was full of disappointment in my mind. Multiple games where it felt like they had a good chance. You got Lodolo out there in the Sunday game and you feel really confident. He finally has his bad game of the year, first true bad game of the year. And it just I don't know exactly what to feel about this team. I don't know if you want to do the what should the Reds do now instead of later, but it was a very disappointing week. I was really hoping for 3 wins, man. I mean, mine wasn't even close. I predicted I think it was 4 wins or 5 wins. So, uh, you know, very disappointing. I still think we should have walked out of Pittsburgh with at least 2 wins. That one's pretty mind-boggling to me, to be honest with you, considering how well we pitched. I don't know. Where are you at? I've been talking too much.
Yeah, the I think I had him at 4-2. You had him at 5-1 with the sweep of the Red Sox, and I think I was 2-1 in each series. If I remember right, someone will have to go back and fact check us on that one. But I'll answer the question now. What should the Reds do? And I think it's they should fire David Bell, and they're not going to, but they should because there were a lot of winnable games in these two series. The defensive miscues, errors, base running issues, guys not doing the fundamentals right probably cost us at least two of the games, maybe more. And I think that's a reflection on the manager. So yeah, we've talked about the hitting coach maybe being fired. That you can do that, that's fine. But and the hitting wasn't great in a lot of these games either. But like, especially because Candy was carrying the team. But I don't know what the excuse is here. These are a bunch of young players who should know better because of how many games they've played at this point, or should at least be learning it. And we're getting just bad fundamentals all over. And the only place I can point the blame is at the manager. The players need to do better themselves as well. But they're also young players, and you're not going to get rid of all these young players. Yeah, the guys who aren't playing well, you can't trade them because they have no value. The ones who are playing decently well have value, and we're going to want to keep them for the long term. So I have never been on this path before. With David Bell, I've always said, okay, he's not the greatest, but let's keep him around type of guy. It's what 7 years now, Rob. They barely made the 2020 playoffs because they expanded the playoffs due to COVID. That team had a lot more talent. He didn't get everything out of them. They did have a good season last year. They gave him the 3-year extension that it gives them through 2026. But I don't know how we can watch this team with all the defensive miscues, everything I mentioned, and just be like, this guy is the guy for the job. It was really cool last year when these guys outperformed expectations, but we still didn't make the playoffs. The only thing going totally right for this team right now is Candy, which is great, and then the young starting pitchers who, again, Abbott, had a phenomenal game in that 3-1 loss against the Red Sox. It's beat. It's just that happens. So I don't know if I want to give David Bell the credit for the starting pitchers. I think that goes more to Derek Johnson, and even our bullpen has played decently well. I think the stat was like 2.53 ERA since the start of June. So I don't know if I want to give David Bell that credit. I don't think he's still managing the pitching staff that well. I don't think they're going to fire him, Rob, but with how many defensive things going on and base running issues and guys just not lining up where they should be. Just to give quick examples, I know I've been talking for a while, but quick examples here. Stuart Fairchild feeling not wanting to throw the guy out at home the other day and saying Candy was in his way so he couldn't see. I mean, he should do better than that. There was plenty. The one game last week they won against the Brewers that we talked about. There was 5 errors in the game. There was a hit to right field yesterday's game on Sunday against the Red Sox where Ellie was going out to do the relay throw, and India was kind of doing the same thing. There was no one at the bag. Ellie should be on the bag if it's hit the right field.
Yep.
They could have had a guy throwing it. The ball wouldn't have been there in time for him to get tagged out, but it's just like fundamentals I'm starting to notice are just kind of falling apart. And like if it was like 1 or 2 mistakes here or there, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But there's just too many. So it's not going to happen right now, but I think there's a manager who can get more out of him. I hate when people say like, oh, well, he's a good guy and he's like the players like him. That doesn't necessarily mean you're a good manager. And I think he's had his fair share of chances at this rate to prove that he is a good manager. It might be a conversation we're having at the end of the year, Rob.
I think it's definitely one. There's a couple things I have on this. The first one, and I'm going to make a Zach Taylor reference after this one, so remind me of that. But
Hmm?
one of my things that my like one of my favorite baseball coaches that I coached with has said is he can forgive the physical mistakes, but he can't forgive the mental ones because the mental ones you have more control of. If you know where you're supposed to be and you make a mistake, that is what it is. That's something that you can fix. But if you're always knowing where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, that's important. Like you said, the right field, the cutoff error, that should never happen in a Major League Baseball game. That just shouldn't. There's no reason for it. Um, and you don't need to speak the same language to be able to do it either. So it's not a language barrier thing, especially because Ellie's been working on his English anyways, and I would assume that India knows at least some Spanish, right? So there shouldn't be a communication error there. Not just that, but the one that's killing me the most, Joe, is they are making multiple errors in one play. If you boot the ball,
Mhm.
take the time to throw it, right? Like you're giving an extra base all the time when you're making those mistakes. And when you're on the base path, I want them to be aggressive. But at the same time, you got to be smart about when those opportunities are. And a lot of these things are falling. Like, look, we knew that Jamer Candelario is not a great defensive third baseman. I think that some of this will get fixed here, even potentially this week, to be honest with you, with the player that we'll discuss that should question mark be getting their call back up. But um, it's really inexcusable to me because one of the things that we've noticed, even though I know that like this is not a Bengals podcast, but one of the things that Joe and I know have noticed about the Bengals is while Zach Taylor is also not the best coach necessarily for given the situations with the Bengals, they are one of the most clean teams when it comes to penalties and mental mistakes. Those are coachable things, and those do stem from how strict you are about them at the managerial level, right? Like how much you can get away with, all those kinds of things, right? I do think that that one falls onto David Bell. It doesn't fall into the fielding coach or the hitting coach or the pitching coach or third base coach, whatever. You have to be able to make the right decisions in the right time. And if you are not prepared, then they need to be doing a better job of preparing you. And I think that this even extends into the hitting, Joe, if I'm going to be honest with you, because it doesn't feel like they're prepared. If they're not positioning correctly, then why the heck should they be getting their scouting reports right and being told the right things to do at the plate that's either A, not confusing them, maybe if they're already doing well, or B, just making the just putting yourself into a good count and making the right decisions, right? Like guy on third, what are you supposed to do? Either hit it to the right side to drive him in, or lift one into the outfield. How often have we seen guys ground out to the freaking shortstop, or ground out to the pitcher, or ground out to the first baseman, right? Like these are just things that like you can do and play the mental game right, and you can win. And we're going to be talking today about the Cardinals, Joe. And the Cardinals have as many injury issues as we do, but guess what? They play fundamental baseball. They always have, and that helps you win games. The Reds probably would be 500 if they didn't have so many mental mistakes, if they didn't double up on so many errors, right? Like those are kinds of things that if you boot the ball, don't make the next error by throwing the ball into the stands, right? Or throwing the ball away from Steer. Steer's a pretty good first baseman. If you throw it near him, he's gonna catch it. But some of these throws by Ellie, by Candy, even by India, they're not even freaking close, man. And it's bad. Like that's really bad, and they're compounding the issues that they're having. So I'm really not pleased with it. I am at the point, I feel like you know me very well. I've been very forgiving of David Bell's mistakes because I felt like they haven't necessarily always put him in the best positions to succeed. This team is much better than what they are getting out of them right now. And they are very fortunate that the NL is as top heavy, I will say, as it is, because they are still very much in the race. And there are moves that they can make to make this team infinitely better and still make a freaking playoff run. And the sad thing is, Joe, is while we should be talking about David Bell getting fired, if they make the playoffs, there's no shot that's going to happen. None whatsoever. So you almost got to weigh that that kind of trade-off. Do we just give up on the season in hopes that they'll find a manager that can actually get it done? Or do you stay with what you already know and be satisfied with at least making the playoffs?
Yeah, these next 2 weeks specifically are going to test us. We obviously just lost the series to the Pirates. The Cardinals, still a tough team to play, even though they're not the greatest. And then at the Yankees, and then at home against the Tigers. Tigers are better than they have been in past years. We finish up the first half with the Rockies and Marlins. We could win all 7 of those games, but if we lose a lot of the games in between, we still might be out of it because while it is 2.5 games back from the wild card right now, 2 weeks of baseball when we're already 5 games under 100, that's kind of scary to me. So especially since we have not been playing our best, that is something I hope that they do better. It's hard for me with all the issues they have to imagine them coming back and making the playoffs. You're right, the fortunate the NL is bad, but it just seems like one thing goes wrong after the other. It's an injury, it's a suspension,
Mhm.
it's a base running miscue by Stuart Fairchild, it's a throwing thing, it's an error. It's Ellie has 3 errors in one game. We somehow win that game. Like it's just seems like it's a little bit too much. It's the starting pitchers pitch great, and then we put someone in from the bullpen and they blow it. Or hey, this bullpen guy comes in and puts 2 runners on, and then you put Lucas Sims in the game. Lucas Sims is not the guy I would pick to put in on the game when there's runners on base, especially in scoring position. He just seems to struggle when he inherits runners. In my mind, the stats might not back me up, but every time I see him inherit runners, it just doesn't seem like it's his thing. He's more of a hot and cold guy for me. There's so many issues. Like I don't know how they do make the playoffs, Rob. At this point, you think about one more injury. There's guys who are like out until August, September. We don't know when some guys are coming back. If there's one more injury, say Candy gets injured right now, this team's probably 7, 8 games under 500. It's that's the tough part right now. Is I do think there's more talent than they're getting out of it. I think we've given David Bell his chance. I think they probably should fire him. I don't think they will fire him this year. But it's just kind of becoming more frustrating each game with this team because they have such natural talent, but then you see them make these errors, these mental errors, these not putting the ball in play, which we've talked about time and time again about. Half the time, oh, I think one of the games this week there was an error they scored on. I forget what game it was. Just putting the ball in play helps you get to that point, and we're not even doing that. We're just striking out a ton, and it's just that's what makes it frustrating being a Reds fan right now. The potential this team has mixed with the results we are getting is not good enough. And we kind of thought the schedule was maybe a reason why, and it definitely was a factor. But we're playing teams that we could definitely be 500 against, maybe go above 500 against. I don't think these teams are very talented overall. And we are coming up with a week where we won 2 games and probably could have won 4 or 5 if we just played good fundamental baseball. So that's the tough part. I'm with you. If they make the playoffs, David Bell is not going anywhere. It is hard to see how they get to that point where we're sitting right now.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be kind of digging into the next parts here as we dive into. I want to try to do at least one positive here, Joe, before I think we kind of just rip into this team pretty substantially here. Jamer Candelario is playing extremely well. He is on a torrid pace. His June has been unbelievable, to say the least. But he has brought his batting average up to 254, which would be his second highest in a full season's worth of games in his career so far. He did have one season where he batted 271 with 42 doubles for Detroit. But his power numbers have been creeping up. We anticipated Great American Ballpark would help that. He's even been hitting home runs in other ballparks and looked pretty solid in my mind. Um, it just looks like he's more confident to me, Joe, than anything else. I think at the beginning of the season he was unsure, felt like he was kind of buckling under the pressure, maybe. But he has truly been carrying this team. He has never had more than 67 RBIs this season, or in a season. He's never had more than 19 home runs. He's on pace for 20 home runs and 71 RBIs. Both would be career highs for him. He is not striking out even the most that he has in his career. He's walking a little bit less, but overall, he's playing well and he's doing what the Reds want him to do. I mean, if this guy ends up for these 3 years being a 260 hitter with 20 home runs and 70 to 80 RBIs, like I know people are going to be like, well, we still overpaid. Sure, we did. But for what they brought him in for, he is getting the job done. And he's one of the only hitters that we can say that confidently about. As much as I love Jake Fraley and I'm glad to see him putting bat to ball, that man has no power anymore since he was sick at the beginning of the year. I mean, that power is pretty much gone at this point, and Tyler Stevenson is just too banged up too often to be able to be a consistent like all-star level catcher. Even though I think he can be, I think his peak is that they just unfortunately he's going to be a guy who's never going to play probably anywhere close to even 140 games a season, right? So um, right now he's working. Steer is starting to come out of his slump slowly but surely, and Ellie's very hit or miss. It's 3 hits in one game, and then 16 0 for 16, and then 4 hits in another game. So um, it's without Candy, dude, we'd be one of the probably 6 worst teams in baseball, 5 worst teams in baseball. That's very depressing considering how great our starting pitching has been this year.
Definitely also give shout out to Jonathan India for batting 250. Had some
Yeah.
rough years and didn't know if he was becoming back, but it's good to see him playing well. He's just not producing as many runs as Candy is, just because
Yep.
Candy's been hitting for power. I I don't think he has a chance to make the All Star game. Unfortunately, there are too many big name guys at the position who will get the votes. So Nolan Arenado, he's having a better season than Nolan Arenado. Pretty much, if you factor in the power numbers, I mean, the average is better for an Arenado. Manny Machado, average numbers are higher, but Candy's hitting more home runs. And then you have guys who were just playing well this year: Alec Boehm, Ryan McMahon,
Yep.
Joey Ortiz for the Brewers. It's going to be hard for him to get that nod. I think we're still trending towards possibly just getting in. I would say starting pitchers. The way the voting is right now for shortstops too. Like for Ellie, I know everyone thinks that Ellie will win the fan vote. He's not in the top two for shortstops, so it's looking like these things like these starting pitchers might be it. But that's not to discredit what Candy has done. I think if he keeps on moving towards the maybe 275 average, which I would have said is impossible a couple months ago, but now that he's playing better, maybe he can by the time the All Star game comes around. Maybe he can push towards an All Star spot. It's just so many names he has to jump over in terms of voting, and then even guys who are producing who will be the manager's picks for the bench too.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but I mean, when you start off as poorly as he did, it takes more than 1 month, of being hot before the All Star game. Generally, not always, but generally, for you to make it. So, unfortunate for him. But I think the next topic for us, Joe, is going to be Will Benson. Um, I am my dad specifically has loved Will Benson since he's come up. I think he is a very interesting player. He's still technically young enough to where you could afford to potentially give him more time. Um, but I'm bringing up his stats right now, Joe. He is batting 192, 97 strikeouts in only 214 at bats, which means he is striking out nearly 50% of his at bats. He has truly become a true outcome kind of guy. He does have 27 walks, which he's on pace for very much a career high in that regard. But uh, it's been so bad. His at bats just don't look competitive anymore. And I'm going to pose the question to you, and I think I know your answer to this one, but is it time to give up on the Will Benson experiment?
It's this tough part, right? Like he showed last year 275 batting average. It's just so hard to remove ourselves from seeing that. But I think I said it earlier. This is one of the guys I targeted when I said it. He just might be this guy, and that's why the Guardians gave up on him. And I hate to say it, it's probably time to end the experiment, or at the very least, try to send him down and try to see if he can just refine his swing in AAA and just see how you go from there. But we talked about guys not like taking at bats from other players. He's become one of those guys, right? Like the Nick Martins, the Mike Fords. He's become one of them, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
something I thought I'd be saying about him this season. I thought he'd maybe, oh, he hits 250, and the power numbers are somewhat similar, and he's fine. But it's a net. He is a net negative to have in the game. Negative .6 WAR right now. I like the player. I like his personality. I like how much energy he brought last year, but I do think that he is hurting the team right now. My biggest thing for him would be to send him down and help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on from Benson. 26 years old. Don't usually find yourself after that age in baseball. I mean, that's as you said, Rob, last episode. 26 is maybe when your prime starts. Maybe 25. I would say because he played so well last year, and I love his energy, maybe send him down and hope he can find his swing. But he's become one of those players who's taking at bats from other people who can help this team, like we talked about with Mike Ford and some of the other guys. So I don't want to quit Will Benson because I do like him as a player, but he does need to maybe go down to AAA and find himself before we can start trusting him again. It's just very sad. And he's hit some home runs this year, 8 home runs. It's fine, but we need him to put the ball in play more consistently. He does look lost at the plate, like you said, Rob.
Yeah, and I just think our hitting overall is just so bad. I mean, it's just really bad when we're celebrating players who are batting 250 and saying, well, maybe they could make the All-Star game. And everybody's gonna be like, well, Jake Fraley's batting 270. Dude, Jake Fraley does not get enough at bats for it to really necessarily matter at times. And not just that, but like my dude has no power left in his bat right now. It's very sad to see. I think he'll get it back. I really do. I think a full off season of working out and everything will get it back. But and it's impressive to see his bat to ball skills. So Fraley is a guy who I will probably not be giving up on anytime soon. I think the Reds should make sure he sticks around because I think he is an excellent platoon guy. But Benson, unfortunately, I'm not going to say give up either. I do think he needs to be sent down, though. I just think so. They sent down Hurtubise. I'd rather see Hurtubise right now. I want to see bat to ball. I want to see a guy who's going to put the ball in play. I know he was still striking out a decent amount too, but his short swing I think helps a lot. He's a faster, not as good Jake Fraley right now, but we'll take it. That's fine. We got to do anything. Anything is better than what we're seeing right now. I mean, I'm almost at the point where you need just bat Stu Fairchild every day against righties, even though I know he's not as good at them. But Will Benson's batting 0.95 against lefties this year. 0.95. 4 for 42.
Yeah,
That is horrible.
I think Jake Fraley needs to have Will Benson's at bats for the foreseeable future. I'm concerned about the power numbers as well, but the thing this team has just lacked is a guy who can get on base and hit the
Yep.
ball, and Jake Fraley has done that. It's limited at bats. I'm not saying he's an all-star. I'm not saying he's a great player, but if you give him maybe 20 more at bats, 25 more at bats, he qualifies for some league leading categories. He qualifies as a hitter. That's what Benson has 214 at bats to Fraley's 180. That amount of average difference could make a difference in the end of
Yeah.
the things too. And maybe you shuffle the lineup around just because Fraley doesn't have that power anymore. Maybe he is just a get on base guy and someone can knock him in. But I'm not going to give up on Jake Fraley either. I know people might be disappointed about the power numbers, but I think the fact that he's still seeing the ball decently well and putting the ball in play is a good sign for when he can really get back. So
Yeah, and I think maybe even the All-Star break will be enough for him to really kind of find his swing again. But we'll move on to our last topic before we start talking about our preview for the week. Joe, trade deadline with our boy Noelvi Marte maybe returning. Last I checked, Marte is batting 156 in Louisville right now. It's pretty awful to be honest with you. But the thing is I don't care. I want to see him get at bats. If our season is not doing well anyways, you might as well bring him up and not shoot it, completely just destroy his confidence. I think it would actually help him. I would bet money that he would bat better up up with the Major League Ball Club than he would down in Louisville, just because then he's around the guys again. He's able to kind of probably, get rid of the feeling of, hey, I let my team down, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, which he did. I'm not saying the blah, blah, blah because we're trying to ignore what he did, but I think it'd be a good idea. They're only 2.5 games out, Joe. I just think it would be such a waste to give up on this team, to be completely honest with you, because I read another thing where they still think Matt McLain is trending to come back in August. Now you can't put all your eggs in that basket. But with CES likely out for the season, Williamson's going to apparently try to come back this season. But pitching's not what we need. We need hitters right now. And Noel V. Marte is better than most of the guys that are down there in AAA, regardless of what you think of his average. I know I said last week, maybe you don't bring him back up if he's batting 160. Well, that is what he's batting right now. So I don't care. I'm just tired of seeing the same swings. I went back and rewatched some of his highlights, Joe, and I didn't just look for, oh, he hit a double here or he hit a home run here. I just like his swing. I think it is a solid swing. I think confidence is a big thing for him. And I think if they bring him back up this week, because he's projected to be up, I believe it's on Thursday in the Cardinals series. And if he's able to do that, just put him at eighth in the lineup and just let him play for the rest of the season. He's better defensively, we know for sure, than Candy is. So at least, if nothing else, you're getting a better third baseman. Your future potentially looks like Matt McLain at second, Ellie at shortstop, and Marte at third anyways. So you might as well get him back up here. He's been one of the top prospects in baseball for a very long time for a reason. There's no, in my mind, and he batted 316 in a decent amount of at-bats last year, Joe. Like, he is a solid player. Like he may just be going through a little bit of a slump to kind of get back into seeing the ball and everything like that. I'm considering these last 2 weeks spring training, and we've seen Joey Votto hit 160 in spring training and then come out and be fine. Or any player. Joey Votto normally starts slow, but any player you can think of generally they start off maybe slow in spring training and come back. I see this as spring training. I think they need to bring him back.
I'm with you. I think his average is even lower than you said. I looked it up this morning while we were doing research for it. I think it's 143 now, so it doesn't help the
He
case.
must have
But
gone
I'm going to
over
say bring
two.
him up because yeah, I'm bring him up just because we need something to be shaken up in this order and this. It's something to go our way. I do think that that's not like a total indication of how he will play once he gets up to the majors either. You could, be waiting to send Will Benson down until you bring Marte up. Obviously, Steer's gonna be playing less infield now. He'll be moving full time to outfield pretty much once you have Marte up. Candy can play first base.
Yep.
Espinal can still be a backup, which
Yep.
his batting average is low. I've still liked some of the things he's done, especially playing small ball and understanding situations offensively to hit the ball to the right side when he needs to. So I'm cool with keeping him up. Um, that could be the move this week, and then you can see how Marte does, and he might be able to provide a little bit of a lift for this offense. And if he doesn't, at the very least, you're giving someone else a chance to hit the ball. Like, I don't know how many other guys we can give a chance who just come up and just don't hit.
Yep.
Um, it's pretty frustrating at this point, but that's what it is. So at least we're trying something different. At least we're trying to shake things up. So bring him up, see what he can do. The discussion earlier this year was, do you bring him up and play him a lot if everyone's healthy, one, and also if you're playing well, you don't want to ruin the momentum of other players if you're in the playoffs. We need something to go right for us to make the playoffs right now. Maybe he's the guy who can get the ball rolling that way, just by having decent at bats and putting the ball in play to start things, and that maybe makes it contagious for everyone else too.
Hey, anything can help. We saw it last year. This team went on runs when people started coming up. Maybe this is just another call up. We're going to try to pretend like it's that and hope for the best. And I will say, if he still struggles to hit, then I think that there is a systematic approach from top to bottom that needs to be addressed because it is just ridiculous how many people are not hitting the baseball in the Reds organization. It is unacceptable at this point, in my personal opinion. And I know that all of baseball batting averages are down. I totally understand that. But this is still just terrible. It's horrible. It is all the above bad. The last thing I'm going to say here is I think they should go out and trade for an outfielder. I think they have enough pitching prospects to do it, and we don't have enough spots. I think you go out and you go and find somebody. I don't care who it is outside of Rhett Lauder. I don't care if it's Chase Petty. I don't care if somebody's gonna, decide that Connor Phillips is just having a weird year and they're fine with how he's been in the past. I don't care if you package somebody with Frankie Montas. Or if Graham Ashcraft, you just decided you're moving on from him. He's looked amazing down in Louisville. Trade him. Fine. I don't care. Go get a young, controllable outfielder. They are on the market. They are available. There are a lot of teams that have those people. Hell, go get Brian De La Cruz. He's hitting fine, and he's a right-handed hitter. And I'm pretty sure he's an outfielder. I'm almost certain he's an outfielder too. So go get you know, I'm pretty sure he's Ellie's brother, right? From the Marlins. Like that would be interesting. So I was watching a Marlins game the other day, and he's hitting okay, but there's just a lot of different options for them to go out and get. And if you don't feel like any of these young guys are it right now, or even for the future, then go out and get somebody. All right. I know that there is a world where Joe, you could correct me if I'm wrong because you know more, especially about college baseball than I do. But there is a young right-handed outfielding hitter that's projected to go in the top 3 or 4, right?
There is the guy from Oregon State who is an infielder, and then the third pick is going to be the first baseman pitcher from Florida. The second pick is a little bit unclear. I don't remember exactly who that's going to be, but there you have the second the draft. You can find someone. You can
There's a
find a
bat,
right-handed
is
hitting
what I'm
guy if
trying
you
to
want.
say.
But
Yeah, there's a bat there, is what I'm saying,
yeah,
and you don't need to worry about blocking him because if he hits well, then he'll make his way right up through the system. So they, in my mind, have to go make a move, Joe.
I'm maybe of the different opinion of I don't know if we're going to be quite into it yet. Like we're still going to be so far below 500 at that point that it's not going to make sense to give up young prospects. I would rather see them spend money in free agency, so we don't need to make trades. If we do kind of stay within 4 or 5 games of the last wild card spot, maybe you make the move. That might be the deciding factor there. Brian De La Cruz would be a great addition. He mostly plays outfield, right-handed
Thought so.
hitter as well. We need right-handers. He is not Ellie's brother, by the way. He's not no relation, surprisingly.
Oh, I
But
thought somebody had said that. I
he
apologize.
I think it may be just a joke. Like Chad Johnson and Keyshawn Johnson always joked that they were cousins. They were never actually related. They just had some fun. So maybe that's what you heard. But that would be a good addition. I do think if they do stay within range to make a move, they should go get a right-handed hitting outfielder and try to take advantage of some of these lefties. Having Friedel back has been very, very huge as a lefty who can hit lefties. But that's what I would do if they are within range. I don't know they're going to be there. I would rather just not trade out any of these young guys, not have to include Cam Collier in a trade or one of these guys we might like in a couple of years. Obviously, the world's not perfect though, so maybe we do have to give some of that stuff up to get a decent player. I don't know what the prices are going to be like at this deadline too, with no one hitting the ball. Are the guys who are hitting the ball more valuable and no one's going to want to trade them? Are
That's a
teams
point
going to
too.
be rebuilding? It's a tough kind of season to figure that out. So obviously the A's are moving, say they don't want to be sellers, but they probably should be sellers. The Marlins already traded Arias. I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of a unique year for the trade deadline. So we'll see what happens. But yes, ideally, if they're still 2.5 games out by the trade deadline, let's go get a right-handed hitting outfielder who is either young and controllable or a guy who is a veteran who can push us over the top and just plays really good baseball. Who maybe he's on a bad team or something.
Yeah, that's kind of where my thought is too. That's why I want somebody who's younger, though. It's because if we're going to have to give up prospects, I want it to be somebody who's going to be with the organization moving forward, right? Like a big name deal. Because I think we have the prospects to get something done. And I'm not all about selling the farm at any point right now, but I also think at some point, if you feel that a lot of these guys, the Steers, the De La Cruzes, the McLeans, even the Martes are going to be your guys of the future, then you have a lot of spots already filled up and you want to have somebody coming up who's going to be able to play with them around the same time. That was the whole reason why I think they did things the way that they did. So if you don't think that some of these guys are going to pan out, then go fill them with other young guys, right, to take over those spots. Because I don't think you want to wait another 3, maybe 2 at least years for like a guy like Cam Collier. I like Chase Petty a lot, but I don't know where he's going to fit in outside of being a bullpen guy, which I don't think that makes sense. Even again, a Connor Phillips. I think Connor Phillips is probably like your number one trade guy. I know not like even if he was pitching well, I would still feel that way. I said that even I think last year in conversations with you. I mean, I just don't think they have a need for him, especially when they went out and got Rhett Lauder. So, I mean, Rhett Lauder is a much better player than Connor Phillips probably will ever be. So that's kind of where I'm at with it, but we will have to see, Joe. I think it's time, unless you got anything extra, to move on to talking about those freaking Pirates.
Just one more thing. A lot of our pitchers in the minor leagues or prospects are not doing well right now. You mentioned Connor Phillips having the worst year maybe of any pitcher we've seen in recent history for prospects wise.
Mm-hmm.
Rhett Lauder, 5.16 ERA. He's still young, figuring it out, but it's tough to see Paul Skeens doing so well for the Pirates and possibly going to get a nod for the All-Star game and having Rhett Lauder, be with the Chattanooga Lookouts and have that ERA so inflated right now. So something else to maybe address in the future. I don't think we need to talk about it too much right now. They're still obviously young and trying to figure things out, but that might be something we need to address this offseason is maybe a better plan for the prospects who are pitching for us because a lot of them aren't able to be brought up to help this team right now. Not that we need it, but we are going to need it at some point.
Sounding like just from top to bottom, our pitching and hitting coaches are not doing their job. So maybe it truly is a systematic
Well,
failure at this point, Joe.
what was the name of the guys that we had that were the pitching
The
gurus
Bodie,
that we hired a couple years ago
yeah.
that we fought seriously? Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, maybe we need some more intelligence and analytics on the pitching stuff that we used to have that we no longer have right now. I mean, it seems like maybe there has been a drop off, but it's hard to say it's a full drop off when their top 3 guys are pitching well. And I'd rather these three top guys be pitching as well as they are than even have these young guys coming up be pitching better right now. So that's just something to think about. We did
I
get
mean,
rid of those
even
guys a couple
Spires
years
is
ago,
pitching
and
really well, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, yeah. So something to think about. I want these guys to do better because I want them to find success because we were all Reds guys. Even if we trade them and they find success with someone else, but yeah, I would love to have more trade pieces and I would love to have more options to bring up to help this team because there are certain places where we could use them.
There's no doubt about that. All right, so we go to the Pirates. We're at home this time instead of in Pittsburgh. We are going to be missing Paul Skeens. This dude is just that dude is electric. I mean, every time I see him pitch, I'm like, I don't even know how his ball is so heavy. I don't know how you're supposed to hit it. To be honest with you, he may end up being one of the top 10 pitchers in baseball by the end of the season. Joe, that is how generationally talented he is. He does remind me. A lot of people compare it to when Strasburg came up, and I watched a lot of Nationals baseball when Strasburg was coming up, and I can tell you that it has a similar feel of dominance to me, but maybe even more so, which is what's kind of crazy, to be honest with you. But this week, right now, it's looking like it's going to be Carson Spires versus Bailey Falter. Then we're going to get a likely, they haven't officially announced it, but likely a Hunter Green versus Mitch Keller rematch, which should be nice. And then an Andrew Abbott potentially versus a bullpen day. At least that's kind of how it went for the Pirates last time. So we'll have to see. Um, Closer again is David Bednar. Lineup: McCutcheon, Reynolds, Cruz, Gonzalez, Telez, Hayes, Joe, Randall, Taylor with Olivares, Triolo, Bart, and Sawinski on their bench. Um, Look, I will be honest with you. Getting Paul Skeens like we did sucked. I still personally feel like the Reds, if they just hit a tiny bit better, could have gone 3-0 in that series, Joe. That being said, we are at home at least against them this time. I'm feeling slightly better. I cannot say I'm feeling a lot better, but at least we're dodging Skeens and we're dodging what's Jones as well. So that's good news. But I don't know, Joe. Where are you at right now? I'm real 50-50 on my prediction right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 1-2. I did not see what I wanted to see this past week, but this is a streaky team, so easily they could just flip the switch and they're like, hey, they win all 3 games against the Pirates this week. That could definitely happen. I don't know if you saw this stat. They talked about it on the broadcast, but it was last 4 starts in PNC Park. I know this one isn't Great American. Hunter Green had a 0.7 something ERA, and he lost all those games, which is just pathetic. But the reason I'm saying is I think Hunter Green has figured out this Pirates lineup a lot. I think he'll pitch well. I think it might be the one game we win. I even know Spires has pitched decently well. The last time he was out there wasn't the greatest. So I'm going to say they maybe lose the Spires game and possibly the Abbott game. That dude, I mean, both Hunter Green and Andrew Abbott are getting just terrible run support this year, and it's tough for them. But I say we win one of the games between Green or Abbott to end the series. Wednesday is a afternoon special game, so maybe that can be good for us. I don't know, but I can't trust this team to win two the way they're hitting, fielding, playing defense. I said fielding too, but base running. It just doesn't seem like a smart decision. But again, I do think there's a possibility since they're so streaky, they win all three.
I'm gonna go 2-1, and I think Hunter Green will do well. I think they'll. Mitch Keller does not pitch as well in Great American Ballpark as he does in PNC. I do remember that about him as well. And I'll take Abbott versus the bullpen, dude. Like, why not? Especially if we get to their bullpen in either the Falter or the Keller game. We did get to Bailey Falter last time he pitched against us. So I'm going to hope that we get to their bullpen early so that if they do either have to call somebody up who's not ready or have to go to the bullpen um, and use it in that Abbott game, then we're able to pull it out. Um, I know what's his name, Holderman has been amazing. I did not realize how good he's been this year. He may even get an All Star nod just because he's been so dominant as a setup guy. But um, I still think Bednar has his issues. His season is very much going like Diaz's season. High ERA, high issues with batting average compared to the past. He's still 16 of 19 though in his save attempts, so we'll have to see. But I don't think that this lineup hit very well against our guys either, Joe. So I'm going to hope that being at home gives us the advantage and gives us the 2-1 series win here. As we move on to the more hated team in the Cardinals, I just can't stand them. I don't understand how they are still in it. It's driving me nuts. We don't know who they are going to pitch, but it's going to be Frankie Montas for us, and then Nick Lodolo. This is a 4 game series. I think they're going to bring up Graham Ashcraft for game 3 of this. He's been pitching well. I think they just needed to get his confidence back up. I think if he has one more good start, I think they'll bring him up instead of Carson Spires and move Spires back to the bullpen, honestly. I think they'd be really dumb not to keep Spires up, especially if he pitches well against the Pirates. And then it would be Hunter Green again. Lineup of Mason Wynn has moved up to the leadoff spot, which I think has probably been what's helped this Cardinals lineup quite a bit. Alec Burleson has been hitting well. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Gorman, Nolan Arenado, Dylan Carlson, Matt Carpenter. I forget how to pronounce it. Is it Pajes still again at catcher? Okay, cool.
Got it.
And then Mike Ciani, Crawford, Raposo. They have 2 catchers that are down, and then Furman. Look, this Cardinals team does not make excuses, Joe. They're still playing well enough to be in a wild card spot. They have just as many injuries as we do. They're missing, people like Edelman, or not Edelman, Tommy Edman. They're missing pitchers. They're missing their best, one of the best catchers in baseball. Like, they're missing their second best catcher as well, and Herrera. Like, there are a lot of guys who are hurt on this team, and they're still getting the job done, despite everybody really getting upset with their manager, because I think the Cardinals are just so used to winning. But um, we have to come out and play well, like, period. If we don't play good defense against this team, we are going to lose, Joe. Um, so I guess I'll give my prediction first this time. I do think we're going to go 2-2. If I'm being honest with you, I think the Lodolo and the Green starts give us the best chance. Montas is literally hit or miss every single start right now. If he hits, maybe they have a chance at 3 wins, to be honest with you. But I'm not feeling it. I have us going 4-3 this week, and being only 3 or 4 games under 500 at that point. I think it'd be 4. So I don't think their hitting is that great, to be honest with you. I know it'll be a little bit better, than we probably anticipate, but their hitting's not been great this year. I think if you handle the top of the lineup specifically, I think you'll have a much easier time against that bottom of the lineup. And their bench pieces are pretty awful, to be honest with you. Like, potentially even worse than ours, which is quite a lot to say. So I'm going to hope that pitching dominates today, because I know our pitching is better than theirs, and we find 2 wins.
Yeah, 2-2. Mostly looking at that Lodolo and Green start as possible wins. Um, to say the Cardinals keep on finding these guys is crazy. Mason Wynn, I'm a big fan of how he plays. Don't like that he's on the Cardinals, but he's come up and been just a huge lift to this team. I think without him, they are a way worse team. But this is a series on the road that we have probably got to win 2 in, because after that we go play the Yankees at the start of next week, and that will be an uphill battle in and of itself. So I do think this series is very, very important. Not even if we lose all 3 games against the Pirates or win all 3 games, regardless, this is a very important series, because if you let this get to be a 1-win series or a 0-win series, that uphill battle against the Yankees next week is going to be very, very tough, especially if you have to use a lot of pitchers going into New York next week. I think that could be something to watch out for. It's like, let's have our starters go a little bit further into games and save ourselves from next week possibly having everyone fresh, maybe 2 days rest before the Yankees. So that's what I'm thinking. I would love to see us put the ball in play as much as the Cardinals do. That's my biggest thing why I think the Cardinals have had success over the years, is they always put the ball in play. They make good fundamental baseball plays, and I hate them for it. Hopefully we can do a little bit more of that. I'm going to go 2-2. I think maybe the bats start to come alive a little bit in the second series of this week. We know Candy's been hitting the ball. We know Indy's been doing okay. Stevenson has. Let's see Spencer Steer get that average up. 235. He's got to do better too. So let him get the average up. Let's see Ellie keep on playing well, but get more of an average up there too. See how this thing goes. I'm going to go 2-2.
Okay, well, we're feeling better. I think a 4-3 week we would both be very, very pleased with heading into the New York series specifically. But let us know what you guys think of this team. Again, I know we're pretty up and down, but I think that's just how it is with this team. It's 1 week they win 7 games, the next week they go 2-5. I mean, it's just it's been very, very hit or miss with them. But we hope that you guys have enjoyed the ride, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, whatever you're listening on. We really do appreciate it. Tell your friends. Let us know about anything that we can do to help this, be better for you, better listen. If you have questions, let us know. We're always happy to answer them. But I think that's going to do it for us, Joe. So with that, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.